Welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast, where we elevate marketing leaders inside and out. I'm your host, Veronica Rami, master marketer, executive leader, and mentor to ambitious marketing leaders wanting to advance their careers. Each episode is filled with genuine, unscripted conversations with some of the world's top marketing experts, accomplished leaders, and industry trailblazers representing brands, both large and small. Our goal with this podcast and everything we do is to help you master your role, nurture your team, prioritize your well-being, and evolve into an industry-leading Rainmaker. This is the Rainmaker Podcast. Hey, Rainmaker family, welcome back to today's Rainmaker Podcast. Ooh, am I excited about this one. So we have a marketing expert who didn't just master one industry. Oh no, she mastered two very, very different industries in her impressive 13-year career. Taylor Becker not only has worked for companies like the PGA Tour, golf nerds get excited, right? So sports marketing 101, but she also has mastered working for consumer product goods and the retail and e-commerce space, like a company called Pilot. You might be writing with it right now. It's the #1 selling pen in America. We dive into the differences between marketing for the sports world versus the retail world. We also talk about when it's time for you to jump, to stay in an industry in your career or to take the risk in changing your industry in your career, when to go or when to stay. We talk about how cross-functional a marketing leader's role is and how it's not just good enough to make marketing leaders underneath you, but to make mini marketers across the entire organization in which you work with. It's unbelievable, super, super packed full of all these little golden nuggets in this conversation. I cannot wait for you to listen to this. Without further ado, let's make it rain on today's Rainmaker Podcast. Taylor, welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast. I'm super excited to have you today.
Thank you for having me, Veronica. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on the show because when I look at your Rainmaker journey, right, you advancing your career as a marketing leader, it's similar to mine in the sense that eventually you and I took the leap and we left the route of working for someone else and now taking our marketing savviness. Now we're doing that in our own terms as, as our own entrepreneurial pursuits and leaders. But I really want to talk about what you learned along the way before that happened. Because like when I look at your LinkedIn account, when I looked at your resume, when I look at like the journey of like PGA Tour, marketing intern, associate, coordinator, manager, VP, director, I mean, like you really climbed the ladder. Was that always the intentions for you? Did you always aspire to just get as far as you could go?
Yes. I mean, yes, I would say that that's always been something that I wanted to do. My goal is to be a strategic leader, leading a team and leading organizations. So that's always been something that I've strived for. I think that the roles that I happened to advance in, those were opportunities that I just really wanted to step out. And when I saw a door open, I took it. And so when you see you move from PGA Tour to the other companies, there were a lot of leaving comfort zones and going outside the box in order to advance my career. Because as I tell a lot of people, my career and most careers, I believe, are not ladders, they're jungle gyms. They're jungle gems. So, what might be a scary side step to the right or left is something that actually might help you move to where you want to be down the road. So it's really being open to those opportunities, taking those leaps and steps, and also learning along the way.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, well, especially with today's economy and with all of the opportunity, even for people who are working for an employer, it doesn't mean that you can't take side gigs. I mean, with like this kind of remote working environment, a lot of people are multi-passionate, especially marketers, especially creatives like ourselves. And so we tend to want to either flex that abilities, not just for the company that we're working for, but with our own. I mean, I had multiple personal websites that I would sell like bulk candy through or like drop shipping this, like, just using the gifts that I gathered along the way. But there is a fear of taking the wrong step in your career, right? There is this pause or hesitation, like when to jump, when to stay, when to hold, when to go. What advice do you have? Like, what was your discernment? What was your compass in those moments of like, do I stay? Do I go up? Do I go sideways? Like, I'm curious.
So I've always wanted to be in marketing my whole life. I mean, in high school, I already had my degree declared while I was in high school. So marketing was always something I wanted to do. It mixes two worlds that I love very much, business and creativity. And so how do I continue to advance and grow in the marketing space? What does that look like? So as I went, the question is, when do you go? When do you stay? I have a very fundamental rule that I follow and I live by. If I'm coming into a role and each day I'm struggling to wake up to go to that job, or I'm feeling, wow, I'm only giving 80% or 70%, I'm starting to, even though the company is great, things are great, and I don't want to, by any means say the company is not great, but I've felt I might have outgrown the role or I'm not being challenged in the role. And so when I start feeling those things, that's where I raise my hand and say, okay, maybe this is a time to leave. Maybe this is a time to move to a different role. And then I start to look within the organization and say, okay, I start to plan out, what does that roadmap to my next step look like? What do I want to do? Ultimately, yes, there's that career path, but there's also what's going to make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
My career path and what it was, 13, 14 years ago is not the same. For instance, e-commerce was not a thing. I am very immersed in e-commerce today with consumer products. Did I ever think that that would be a thing? No. And so it's really when you get to that point, you always have in your mind, okay, I've always wanted to do this, but then at the same time, looking at where you are now and how do you get to that next step? Is what you had next really what you want to continue to do? Do you want to
Mm-hmm.
do something different? And then start to look, within your organization or outside your
Mm-hmm.
organization to fulfill that for you in your next part of your career.
Yeah, I really resonate with that because I'm even like now sitting here kind of reflecting on my own career. It's not like the medical profession where like your career advancement is very concretely laid out depending on what you
Right.
want to become, like an orthopedic surgeon. Okay, I got to do all of these specific milestones and they all have their different, tenures and things like that in schooling. Marketers, I mean, we can all agree that we want to advance
Right.
in multiple ways, whether it's title, status, pay, responsibilities, exposure. So we can all agree on that. But how marketers do it is way more fluid. And like you said, it's the jungle gym, it's the squiggly line, not the straight line. It's a little bit
Right.
more. And I'm even trying to reflect like, what was my compass? Something that I've told other marketers that I've mentored before that like I have these three things. Well, when I look back at the jobs that I left, it came down to three things: one or all three, all of the above. It was either like I no longer had a passion for what I was doing. Like I
Right.
couldn't deploy one more email, so help me. Like even though it was a great job, I just
Yes.
the function of the role on my own, I didn't want to do it. I didn't enjoy it anymore. So like the role itself, who I worked with or for, like that social component, like did I respect the leader? Did I not respect the leader? Was I respected or was I not respected? You know what I mean? And then obviously
Right.
compensation, because as I advanced, my family expanded and my needs were
Right.
increasing as well. I had more mouths to feed. And so my compensation also had to come with me in order for me to make it worth it. Even if I loved the job and I loved my employer, if I couldn't pay the bills, it didn't really matter. But I think that's really true. Like for a lot of marketers, we are that creative, we are the artist and the scientist in one. And so
Right.
personal fulfillment is deeply important to our values. And so
Mhm.
it's funny that your internal system was like, I'm not deeply fulfilled or I'm not being challenged. I'm not, joy or happiness is not found anymore. And that kind of led you. I really love that a lot. Now your background is diverse because I mean, you
Right.
didn't stay in one particular discipline or industry. Like you said, e-commerce and sports and retail. I mean, like it's all over the place. Was that part of the journey for you? Was that part of the experience of learning what you liked, what you didn't like? Because I mean, being a marketer for different things can, extract different strengths from you as well.
Right. I think marketing in general, those skills are so transferable
Hmm.
across multiple industries. And so that's a blessing in disguise because it allows for us to jump across multiple industries and do the same thing. A lot of the time I'll say, it's just I'm marketing a widget. I just need to fall in love with that widget or that thing or that
Yeah.
service. And so, yes, I've jumped a lot of different industries. I, when I graduated, the idea was you stay with that company forever. And that's
Mm.
not the case anymore.
Yeah.
I am somebody personally that loves to learn about products, about things, about processes I love to build.
Yeah.
And I found staying in one company or one place was not going to do that for me. And so there's a lot of faith in taking those leaps. When I left the tour, which by the way, I love sports marketing.
Yeah.
So I love sports in general.
Yeah.
Anybody you ask, I love sports. And I took a huge leap leaving the tour, going into consumer products. But I wanted to learn about consumer products. I wanted to understand the behavior behind it, sales behind it, marketing, and so on. And in order for me to grow that side, or grow that skill set, I needed to leave.
Yeah.
And so I made that really, really hard, risky decision to do so,
Yeah.
and I did. And I've been in consumer products ever since, and I enjoy it a great deal. But even within consumer products, you can go so many ways, you know. So I've sold all kinds of things, and actually, it's fun to walk through the list of all the things that I've sold. But you get to learn about a lot of different techniques and tactics within different channels, and it really ultimately helps you build out a strategy skill set that as you advance, you can use. And it gives you multiple perspectives within yourself, along with engaging multiple perspectives around the table. As you go into more strategic leadership roles, you value those things more. And there are channels that, you know, maybe in sports, consumer doesn't think about, but hey, it might benefit using those kind of strategies.
Yeah.
And so that's the benefit of it too. Marketing is such a broad topic. There's so many directions you can go. And even today, you know, e-commerce, you know, I think a lot of folks think e-commerce is sales, and I argue the fact that it's not. Our e-commerce is marketing mixed with operations and analytics.
Oh, for
I mean,
sure.
you don't have to,
Yeah.
you know, yes, there's pricing strategy and those things. You know, there are some sales components in there for sure. And those are things I've definitely touched. But I think a lot of it is it's not sales, it's more marketing. And so but when you think e-commerce, you don't necessarily think that. So it's marketing allows you to have a broad tool set, but jumping to multiple industries and really learning about how different companies run, how they tackle issues, how they build their own strategies, allows you to become this diverse leader across, you know, to really step into any role. And that's something that I really gravitated towards as I started to move to different roles in different organizations was, wow, there's a huge benefit to this. There's a risk, but there's also a big benefit to it.
Oh my gosh, I completely agree with you in all the ways, because so true innovation is not staying in the same bathwater of the same industry. It's just not. Hey, Rainmakers, true or false? Becoming a top marketing leader is all about climbing that corporate ladder. False. Such crap advice for modern marketers. The true key to unlocking your career potential in today's landscape, learning how to promote yourself versus waiting for someone else's validation. Introducing the new Rainmaker Roadmap, your free comprehensive guide to becoming a marketing powerhouse. Master your role, nurture your team, prioritize your well-being, and evolve into the marketing visionary you are meant to be. Grab your roadmap today by going to rainmakerroadmap.com or grab the link in the show notes. Now back to today's episode. I remember after 4 years in multifamily and commercial real estate, I'm like, if I hear the word luxury apartments one more time, so help me. Like it just every conference, and by the way, I loved it. I have enormous respect. This is not me dissing it. I'm just saying that sometimes when you have the same marketing speakers, the same marketing knowledge,
Right.
the same everything in the same industry, the same vertical, nothing kind of feels innovative anymore.
Right.
And so I would ask my employer, I'd be like, hey, can you guys comp me to go to marketing conferences and events and associations outside of multifamily and commercial real estate? Because learning from a digital marketing, learning from a sports marketing expert, learning from a different discipline type of marketing, and I could take that and bring it to the space that was getting a little bit, static,
Right.
and it can feel innovative again because I'm just taking best practices from other sources.
Right.
So bringing leaders from different verticals is like such bliss to me because I love hearing what's working across the aisle in someone else's domain.
Right.
I have to ask you, I'm not the expert that you are when it comes to e-commerce or sports. So for somebody who has never been in a sports marketing capacity or in a consumer goods marketing capacity, like break it down. Like what is marketing like for sports versus marketing like for consumer goods? Like if you had to kind of give me the 411.
Okay. Well, I think at the end of the day, you want to promote customer excellence. And from a marketing perspective, even in e-commerce, it spans so much. You're either direct to consumer, you're through a retailer, which is your B2B to C, or you're just B2B. There's a lot of different ways within e-commerce, omni-channel strategies, all of those kind of work. So I think for e-commerce, it's a lot of being really comfortable with technology, really comfortable with fast-paced environments, staying up to date on all the tactics that retailers use today, that brands might need to employ today. I sometimes joke it seems like it changes by the hour depending on the partner. So having a hunger to learn and having and being comfortable with technology is key in those realms in e-commerce, being comfortable with the analytics. And then also being incredibly creative. How can you draw in the customer? Because at the end of the day, for e-commerce, where the challenge is that once that customer walks away and is unhappy, it's very hard to bring them back. Very much like bringing them into a retail store.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with an oversaturated market within e-commerce. So, if you look at different products, there's look-alike products, there's similar products, there's competitive products, there's all kinds of products within one category. So it's oversaturated. It's that endless shelf strategy that is really endless. And so how do you draw the customer to your product and convince them why should they care? And hey, am I going to have a good experience not only purchasing this product, using it, and hey, complaining about it, returning it? Those factors need to be considered too. And so e-commerce, it's dealing with consumers that you will never see. And so that's very much a different world, and just being comfortable with the analytics and the content, really thinking about how the consumer experiences when they can't see you touch the product, go into a store, and so on. And that's pure play. That's pure digital play or pure e-commerce play. When you look at the sports world, sports is all about how do you get them to come on site to this event, take the time. You're talking about discretionary income. You're talking about folks like deciding to go to this event versus a plethora of other events, especially the bigger the city, the bigger the market, right? So there's so many other things going on. It's more about the experience. So it's a different kind of experience. So with e-commerce, it's the experience of going through the purchase cycle, enjoying the product, and so on. For sports, it's yes, the purchasing is an important piece. You want less friction there, especially as you go into digital environments and so on. But it's really about the experience of being there, of going to that game, of going to that event, of taking advantage of all kinds of events. At the tour, it was all kinds of events on site. And how did you keep that customer engaged throughout the day? And that's something that in golf, it's unique to golf because it can be literally a whole day, a whole week of events. And how do you really keep folks involved and engaged? And so that's a whole different ball game. And you have to understand what drives different age groups, just a lot of different demographics across the board to get them all engaged at this event on site. And there's a lot of work from multiple teams across the organizations, our sports organizations, to ensure that is happening. I would say that marketing also, in general, we can't be siloed. It's a very cross-functional role, and advice there would be really sit down with your customer service team, with your operations team, with your finance team, your product team. I think product and marketing creative, they all cross paths, but do you sit down with your finance team? Do you sit down with operations? Those are folks that touch or are dealing with these experiences and probably could provide some great insights and good partnership to ensure the experience is successful. So it's kind of two different worlds for sure. Yeah. But I would say at the end of the day, they're both on experiences, just different types of experiences. And how do you ensure that experience is a positive one where they will come back?
Well, I'm nerding out completely. So like salivation initiated, like activated. No, because you're right. Like one of the lines that you said that I love with the e-commerce, it's like consumers you'll never see.
Right.
But then in the sports world, the proximity is much closer because
Yes.
they're in person with you. So here's my question. Where does marketing start and where does it bloody end? Because for me, like marketing's job is not to make the product. Our job is to bring the product to the marketplace for purchase.
Right.
But then, like you said, even when the people are on site and like they're on the green, like they are at an event for a day, a
Mhm.
week, or whatever, there's still marketing messaging
Right.
everywhere. There's marketing's influence everywhere, even post purchase of ticket.
Mhm.
So where does marketing start and where does it flip and end? Because if I think about marketing's responsibility being both over the prospect journey
Mhm.
and now also the consumer journey, like both pre-purchase and post-purchase, I'm already overwhelmed.
And so, hard answer to that question. I don't think it ends.
Fair?
I think it's involved in so many aspects
Yeah.
of everything. And that's why I mentioned the cross-functional, because it can be overwhelming. A lot of organizations do not have the resources to meet every aspect of marketing to engage a customer. And that's just the reality of most situations. That's why having cross functional partnerships with different people across, so for instance, operations, e commerce is a heavy operations,
Oh, yeah.
and being engaged with operations team, just giving them some tips like, hey, if you put the item in the box this way, that could make the customer experience better. And a lot of education and showing the value of why you're asking is going to help.
Mm,
And then also you're essentially creating mini marketers across the organization, because now
100.
they realize, oh wow, okay, this does have an impact. And you can show, that's the beautiful thing about data today, is you can go back to that team and say, hey, here's the data, we tested this, here's the data to show that it was good, bad, or indifferent.
Mhm, mhm.
And now they're purposeful and they're part of something. And now you've created hopefully a mini marketer. And actually, I've seen a lot of great ideas come from that. You come in with your own idea, but be open to hearing what they're seeing, their challenges. And a lot of times they'll come and say, hey, did you ever think of this? We ship the box this way, or we put a label on the box, or should we put instructions in the box this way? Or so many different things that you won't think about. And that's where having those partnerships across the organization really engaging is key to ensuring that even in the most resource intensive situations, you do have partners across the organization that are looking out from a marketing perspective.
Well, yeah, because they're not your employees.
Right.
So to some degree, like you can't just, drive by, tell somebody what to do and expect for it to get done. You have to build rapport. There has to be relationship equity. I love how you phrased it, this little word truffle of like making mini marketers across the organization. I love that because I know like one of the truest definitions of like supreme leadership is making mini leaders. Like as
Mhm.
you advance in your career, there's a trail of leaders behind you. But also doing that across the organization, not on your direct team.
Right.
But I want to zoom in on your team because you and I are both uber passionate about team building and creating positive company cultures, team cultures in our obviously within our sphere of influence. So like as you came up in your career, what did you learn about your natural leadership abilities and where did you have to supplement?
Right. I love that question. So naturally, I'm very confident, and naturally I'm an active listener, and I love to empower people. That's very natural. I've always been about giving voice. And I think throughout my career, especially, being a female in corporate, nobody has to, everybody knows you don't always feel you have your voice. And so that was something that throughout my career, I've always been about giving a voice to my team, giving them autonomy, providing them with the tools and the skills they need, not just for the job that they're doing on my team, but for the career that they want to have off my team. I've even told employees, hey, I want you to take my job one day,
Oh
which I
wow.
know is, people are hesitant to say those things. And I think that as leaders, we need to be okay with saying, yes, if you want to be a director or VP, that is fine. Tell me that. How do I help you get there? And so
Right.
that's been always a big part of just who I am, and what I've wanted to do is empowering people. As far as supplemental, really building the strategy, understanding the strategy, and strategically leading the team, building goals,
Mm,
how to incentivize those type of things. I've learned along the way, either through reading, through articles, classes,
mm-hmm.
learning from leaders that I've had in the past. All of those things I've had to, or I've learned, because I think you have a lot of managers and leaders that get promoted, and they aren't always given the tools, and
Amen.
yeah, right. And so that's something that I recognized, and over the years have definitely developed for myself to ensure, because half of my job is, yes, ensuring that the company meets strategic goals and initiatives. The other half is ensuring that my team is very productive. They
Mm-hmm.
feel that they're being heard. They're feeling they're
Mm.
empowered, and they're meeting their personal career goals. And that's a lot of hard work to do. But if you do that, it's amazing, the creativity, the ideas, the empowerment, and just everything that comes out of those members, and what they're able to do and carry whole strategies forward is pretty amazing. And so I don't, I think that there is times being spent, especially nowadays, with all kinds of things going on, with your quiet quitting and all those things. But I still think that there's not enough attention paid to it, to really look at employees and say, okay, let's really take time to develop, really take time to understand the individual contributor, and how can I as a leader empower that person.
Well, yeah, because it's incumbent upon us as leaders to align someone's personal aspirations with the aspirations of the company.
Right.
Because that's where retention is found, right? Like if me staying here gets me further to my personal goals, then I'll stay here longer.
Mhm.
Even if my personal goals are to write a book one day, or to
Right.
be a VP one day, or to have my own company one day. Like I remember sitting with my chief operating officer, and he asked me like, "Ron, what do you want?" And I'm like for the company, he's like, no, like what do you want for your life? And I'm
Hmm.
like, well, I'm very ambitious. And one day I would like to have a book and this and that and this. And he's like, well, what can you learn here that would help you
Right.
make a book one day? Or what would you, being the youngest person on a team, being the only woman in the room, like what kind of book do you plan on writing? I'm like, oh, and so like just the fact that he took interest in my own personal aspiration and then aligned what I was doing in the walls of the company, Monday through Friday, as like a source of great stories to go for that effort. I mean, like he made that connection. I had never made that connection. For me, they were separate, maybe even conflicting
Right.
motivations. I had separated in my mind, like a separation of church and state, what I want versus what the company wants. And he's like,
Right.
no, we can do it together. And I'm like, that was such a powerful lesson for me that I've tried very, very, very critically, very strategically and intentionally to do that with team members moving forward, because then you don't really have those quiet quittings. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, but that's my part. That's my contribution that I can do for the minimum. So I love that you said that. I have found this conversation to be uber fruitful, and I really appreciate you opening up and sharing your wisdom. It's clear to me that you take the mantle of being a leader super seriously. It's awesome to see your personal success and then also having these holistic values as part of the journey as well. I think marketers are some of the most generous people on the planet. Marketers help other marketers. And so I just want to say thank you for coming on today's Rainmaker podcast and sharing all of this beautiful wisdom.
No, I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for having me. And I love marketing too. I could talk about it all day. So anytime.
Thank you for joining us on today's Rainmaker podcast. Marketers help other marketers. So if there's a marketer in your life who could really use a new perspective in a way that helps them advance their career, please pass this episode forward, share, leave us a review. Everything helps as we embark on helping as many marketers elevate themselves inside and out. You can always visit veronicarami.com for today's show notes, additional links to some free resources and tools for you to help you advance your career. You can always connect with us on social media at @ViaRami if you want more behind the scenes or a way for us to connect personally. Until next time, my friends, make it rain.